Good evening. It is 10:12 and it's 6:10 on 10:12, and this is a meeting of the Finance Committee. With me is Mr. Sievert and Mr. Phillips, and my name's John Schweizer, and we are here to discuss getting reimbursement for the COVID expenses. Mr. Titterington?
A little more involved in that, but we did receive 3 allocations of CARES Act funding related to the federal government's largesse as far as the virus relief. Troy has received nearly $2.1 million, which we can use for virus-related expenses. What is primarily the purpose or how we're going to be eligible to use it, I guess, is to offset some of the costs related to the response of our first responders, the police and fire folks. The guidance that we've received from both the state and the federal governments is that we can presume that the primary purpose during this emergency of our public safety folks is responding to calls for service related to the virus, and as such we are able to recognize those expenses, which would allow us then to retain those funds and not have to return them to the county and then ultimately to the state of Ohio. There are a couple of deadlines that we are in the process of complying with. First one is that we need to encumber funds, if legal, by November 20th. And encumbering means that we would sign a purchase, or we would issue a purchase order, which would then reserve the funds and then be able to be used to pay for the goods that we would receive. The goods need to be received in our hands no later than December 31st. Salaries, if you know anything about governmental accounting, salaries do not get encumbered. Salaries are paid as you go. That was kind of I wouldn't say a loophole, but kind of a vague part of this law. And what we were advised is that so that we can comply, and by advised I mean by the state and federal budget folks and treasury folks, is to have the council pass a resolution that declares that these public safety folks, as well as a portion of other salaries related to the city where there were specific documented hours spent addressing the emergency, that those be declared substantially dedicated to those purposes, and that can serve in place of any kind of encumbrance. I mean, we'll be buying some goods and services, and so we'll be able to put that money aside. This legislation will serve as our quasi-encumbrance process for purposes of being audited, which we probably will be next year as a secondary audit to our primary one.
So we couldn't use it for wear and tear, say on vehicles or anything like that?
No, that's probably stretching it, but if we have to do if we've had to do things to, we've had to do additional disinfecting, we've had to buy additional equipment for protection, we intend on buying additional outdoor furniture for social distancing, for example. Those are the kind of expenses that are eligible, but just from the middle of the eligible time frame for our public safety salary reimbursement is from the middle of March through the end of December. So if you just take a percentage of that, anywhere from 10 to 25%, and it's across the board as far as communities are going. We are looking at 25% reimbursement for those that were in uniform on the front lines with a scaled down percentage depending on what rank. And then again, you know, if I spent X number of hours and I could document those hours can count against this CARES Act money. And what you will see later is as part of our normal reappropriation, you should see this fund, which you established earlier, special fund. You'll see money being apportioned back to the general fund and other funds accordingly. And we are asking for emergency legislation so that we can get all of our documentation in order, because the time is of the essence.
And this money is sitting in, I think it's, did you say, or in here it says Fund 250?
That was a special fund that was established just for this purpose, yes.
So it's sitting in a Troy-controlled account?
Yeah.
What happens to the money on December 31st?
We would have to send it back to the county, whatever we don't spend.
Okay.
Now, we have accumulated a list that is much greater, adds up to much more than what the 2.1 million. Again, you know, police and fire salaries are a significant amount of our general fund in any normal year. And so, you know, we could easily justify a higher percentage if there are more funds that become available.
Okay.
And by declaring this, you are not just declaring what we intend on listing now, but if things change, this resolution will apply.
Okay. Mr. Sievert?
I have no problem with that.
I have no questions either.
Any other councilmen out there? Mr. Schilling?
Could we use this to cover our lost
Mr. Schilling?
income taxes?
Mr. Schilling, you got to come up to the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
While you're coming up, I believe your question was, can we use it for revenue losses? That is the one thing we cannot use it. They're crystal clear. They're crystal clear on that. The initial provision setting up the CARES Act did not allow for it, did not anticipate it. It is one of the greatest needs of the communities. It allegedly has been part of the discussions of the next round, and so we are not holding our breath.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? How do you feel?
Please proceed as staff is
And we're all
recommending.
good with emergency legislation?
Yes, I have
Okay.
Yes.
Mrs. Knight, let's move forward with emergency legislation.
All right.
Anything else to come before finance?
No, sir.
First day with the new tongue.
And a new mask.
Yeah, that's what it is. I'm getting blowback. We are adjourned.